Okay. Well, again, welcome everyone. I am Catherine Stanley. I am the AirTAP program coordinator. So to give you a little overview of who AirTAP is, I just want to welcome you guys to the final webinar in our winter series. Today we'll be talking about understanding the airport manager's role and responsibilities. So this workshop series is sponsored by MnDOT's Office of Aeronautics, and it's administered by the Airport Technical Assistance Program, also known as AirTAP. And we are located at the Center for Transportation Studies at the University of Minnesota. So if you're unfamiliar with AirTAP, we started in 2000. It was the first in its kind in the nation, offering practical yet specialized training and resources across the state for those who operate, maintain, and administer Minnesota's public use airports. Minnesota's general aviation personnel across the state have had access to targeted information and training to reduce costs and improve the safety, quality, and the overall efficiency of airport operations. AirTAP also helps airport staff build a community network for exchanging best practices and learning from one another. So AirTAP provides 4 major service categories. We have education and training, like the event we're putting on today, but we also help with other workshops and also the annual airports conference. We provide technical assistance, we have access to experts, and we also have resources and printed materials. So we have a briefings that goes out 5 times a year, and we have a really comprehensive website. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is the final of the 3 that we offered this winter. The other 2, the Understand the Grant Process and Airport Lighting, they are on our website. So I encourage everyone to go to our AirTAP website at some point. All the recordings, this series and previous, are located there for you guys to view whenever you have a chance. And if you are new to the Zoom platform, along the bottom, you have a black ribbon. You can unmute yourself whenever you feel like you ask a question at the end of the session. Otherwise, everyone is automatically muted. Video, again, you can display your video at the end. When we're sharing the screen, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to share a video, but if you would like to, go ahead. You can view all the participants that are attending today. You can submit questions in the chat. So we really encourage you throughout the presentation. If you want to submit them, do it here. Screen sharing is active for everyone, but you won't have to do it. And as I said, this is being recorded, and feel free to use the reaction button whenever you feel like it. And now I'm going to hand it over to Melissa Underwood, who is today's moderator. Melissa?
Great, thank you, Catherine, and thank you everyone for joining the airport management session today. As Catherine mentioned, my name is Melissa Underwood, and I'm an airport planner with SEH, and I'll be moderating the session today. We just have a wide range of topics that we'd like to talk about and go over how airport managers address these items with their airport and how they balance that with their multiple roles they have within the city or the county. And to help me do that, I have 3 airport managers here with me today. So what I'd like to do is share my screen and let them each introduce themselves before we start with our content. And then, as Catherine mentioned, if you have questions throughout this hour, please put them in the chat and we will answer them the best that we can. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started with introductions, and I'll turn it over to Chris first.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Fredrick. I am the airport manager and services and marketing coordinator for the city of Buffalo. If you're not familiar where Buffalo is, we're about 40 miles west of downtown Minneapolis and about 30 miles southwest from St. Cloud, I guess you'd say. So I was hired in 2007 as the marketing coordinator for the city. And in 2008, was appointed the airport manager. So I've been an airport manager now for about 14 years. My marketing side, I do a lot of stuff with revenue, trying to make sure that any asset that the city of Buffalo owns, that we're trying to market that to make sure we can generate as much revenue out of those assets as possible. And then along with that, social media, Facebook, Twitter, and then I'm also the webmaster for the City of Buffalo website. So I have a variety of different things that fall underneath my purview at the airport.
Great, and then I'll turn it over to Andy.
All right. Morning, everybody. Andy Cemenski with the City of Sueur. Sueur is located about 40 miles southwest of the Twin Cities, kind of 20 miles north of Mankato, so kind of in between there. I've been with the City of Sueur since 2007. I started as the Recreation and Parks Supervisor. Moved up in 2011 to Facilities Management. And in 2016 was asked, because I have an aviation background, to take on the role of airport manager also. That's how I got into the airport management end of it with my aviation background. Basically just, start a day with out at the airport, checking, doing all my daily checks and just have a constant flow throughout the day, usually out there 2-3 times because I am not actually based out at the airport. So yeah, that's kind of my overview.
Great, thanks, Andy. And then our third panelist is Pam.
Good morning, everyone. I am Pam Schroeder. I am the Fillmore County. I'm located in Fillmore County, which is in Preston, Minnesota, which is on the southeastern, basically border of Minnesota. I have been in within the county. I have worked with the county for 28 years now. The last 15 in 2007, I was I guess stepped into a role of airport manager, kind of unbeknownst to me, but done a lot of learning within our area. We have, or within my department, I have highway accounting to do. That's what I was actually hired for. So I do all of the construction payments for highway, roads and bridges, year-end reports and such like that, which then is a complete contrast to aviation, where there's a lot of planning and working with a lot of people to be in the know. So I have a wide variety as well. And one day you might find me out sumping fuel. I am not located, I'm 5 miles away from the airport as well. So there's some challenges involved.
Great, thank you, Pam. So I think it's important to share here that these 3 airport managers wear multiple hats. And so our goal today is to let them share how they handle their aviation roles with their other duties. And how we'd like to start that today is talking about capital improvement plans. It's with all the federal funding that's been coming in with COVID relief funds, the new bill funding, we thought it'd be interesting to talk about how each community kind of handles their CIP and works with their councils or their county boards to do that process. So I think we'll start with Chris, and if you want to share any tips you have for managing your CIP with your city, that would be great.
Thanks again, Melissa. With a CIP, it's always an interesting thing to kind of go through, but one of the main things is if you do not have projects on your CIP, then you are not going to be able to qualify for state or federal funding. So what we do is with our airport commission, we used to meet monthly. We now only meet quarterly, and then we do throw in a 5th one just to talk about the CIP basically in October. But what we like to do is start early, because we only meet quarterly. And we start talking about the CIP at our May meeting. Then we kind of get a little more in depth of it in our August meeting, and then we really finalize it in that October meeting. So what we do though is we try to work with city council. We have a city council member that is a liaison that sits on our commission. I'm sure others do the same thing, but they come to all of our commission meetings. And we try to get them involved and know what we have on the CIP so that they can go back and talk to council and mayor and be educated on what's on there. One of the other things that we really try to do is, the state and the feds are looking for 20 years out. So there may be some projects that maybe are dream projects. I mean, you don't want to have something crazy on the CIP. But as I mentioned at the start, is if it's not on the CIP, you're not going to get funded for it. And you can always shift things around on that CIP. So get stuff on there that you need, prioritize what you need, but it can always be moved around or deleted. So I guess that's kind of one of the main things is just make sure that that CIP is filled with projects so that if you need it, you have it. And then the CIP obviously is a way that the federal government also looks at how much money should be designated to aviation by looking at everyone's CIPs throughout the nation.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Chris. Andy, do you also want to share how you can maximize your CIP with your city as well?
A lot of it goes back to what Chris had talked about. We're constantly, it seems like every we do commission meetings every quarter also. And it seems like every quarter we're moving things around on the CIP, just to maximize them dollars, try and get projects, that are comparable in 1 year to try and reduce their mobilization fees, from contractors. So that's what we try and do. I mean, I think we redid ours before this past year 3 times throughout the year. Now we try and get ours finalized by our June meeting. So that way, when the city starts their internal CIP, our local share can get worked into the next year's project also, so it doesn't get missed when the budget and finance committee meets to finalize a budget for the upcoming year. I think that's that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's great. And what I hear is a lot of coordination between your council to let them know those projects are coming and that there's that local share that they have to think about as well. That kind of leads to our next topic. Pam, would you want to talk about how you educate your county board members on this process and other airport projects? Because we know they're not all experts in airport work. So what's some ways that you may help educate them on what the airport needs?
I think the biggest thing is that you just have to take the time to reach out and observe. Well, you got to give them what you're doing. You have to reach out and observe. There might be one that's completely against an airport, and there might be 2 others that are very for the airport. And, part of getting the information through to them is reaching out to them. You have to also assure them and telling them this is what we are entitled to do, or obligated to do, I should say. So, you have to remember, if you've taken federal money, you also have to abide by their assurances, which are all looked up in some light reading in the advisory circulars. And in order to do that, you still need to reach out to them. Make excuses to talk to them about stuff. I mean, if you see them on the street, small talk with a little bit of airport involved goes a long way. And eventually, in my case as well, I've got 2 on my commission board, and they both are pro airport. And of course, as time goes, people come and go on your board. And for mine, it's a county board is what I'm talking about. And I've had a couple that come in and they're just absolutely, they think it's a waste of money. However, when you can show them what the economic impact calculator shows, you can tell them how this benefits our county or your city. It's all about education for them, because in all fairness, it's not their bag either. I mean, it's not their background either. It's a very unique area, is aeronautics. So try to do your best with that.
Yeah, that's great. How about you, Chris, and working with your city council?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what Pam already just said, but one of the things that, most city council members, some of them are not business owners, some of them are just residents, but a lot of times they are business owners. So you want to show them what the impact that the airport does have on the community. So one thing that we try to do is whenever we have something going on at the airport, we try to bring it to them, not the small things, but the larger things, bring it to them and show them how it impacts the city. We have been lucky enough, 3 out of the last 4 years, 1 year was COVID down, including this year, to have GMAG come out to our airport. So the Great Minnesota Aviation Gathering is put on by the Minnesota Pilots Association. This year it's going to be May 20th and 21st, Friday and Saturday, but it's they're full day sessions out here, and they bring a lot of people into the community either via airplane or just driving into the event. And I try to make sure to get council and the mayor's buy-in on programs like this because it shows what it can do for the economy, the local economy. And then as long as they know that there's things like this that the airport does bring in, then when you show them a CIP and you're asking them to spend X amount of money, it really kind of helps bring it together and show that the airport is just not a bunch of rich people out there, having their toys and hobbies, that it actually does provide an economic impact for cities and counties.
Yeah, that's great. And I think the relationship, goes further when you're, not just your city council, but you're also building relationships with MnDOT and the FAA. Andy, can you share some tips on how you build those connections, maybe with the FAA?
Well, I think the only thing that hasn't that I with the FAA, just reach out to your FAA rep. If you got a question, send an email. I think that's the best way, and that's how I've started, being able to build a relationship and just sending them, hey, is this project eligible? We had one project I'd like to do, an energy saving project, and after some time, well, no, it's not eligible, but just get involved with them people, whether it be, somebody from MnDOT, somebody from the FAA, just, and my supervisor, he does a lot of that too, so he relieves me of some of that. But just talk with them, one other thing, going back to the previous topic that I thought that, Pam and Chris, they covered the topic well, but, you get new members on your board, you get new members in the city council, and Melissa, and everybody else knows that we use a lot of different terms. We use a lot of acronyms, and it's just like, stop the meeting. What does that mean? So you just got to educate them. What's a reel? Well, a reel is a type of light. It's a runway end identifier. That's one that took a long time to teach a few of them, and so just educate your council on what these whole new set of terms they're learning are.
Melissa, I had another thing to add too, if I may. One thing that I know that can be a dreaded thing because we don't know about it or what it means is a master plan. The FAA is requiring a master plan, and at first, I'll be honest, I thought, oh no, this is going to be so much work. This is so expensive. This is just, it's going to take forever for us to do anything. However, the shining lining of it all is that it is so nicely set up that you start from A and go to Z. And with that, you have meetings that you as the manager can say, I need to have these community members involved, business members, pilots, and there's your place where you can put your policymakers, like your board members or your city council members. And you need to look at the scope of who is going to benefit by your airport. How can you prove to them and show them what you really have to do, what you're required to do, and what, the benefit is. So, and of course, lean on your consultants with that. I mean, your consultants can give you so much help with that. Just ask. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, especially with all the funding coming out, the bill funding, and trying to have that plan in place for what you want to do for the near term and long term future of your airport. Before I kind of switch over to, we're going to kind of go into NOTAMs or airport facilities. There was a comment in the chat box that I'd like to read, and then if anyone could answer. So the comment or question is, any of you updated your weather reporting to an AWAS 3 or equivalent? How to manage the required cost of FAA testing and maintenance? And these costs are thousands each year. This sponsor is considering replacing their Super AWAS to IFR weather reporting and considering the option to be certified to test and meet the required annual calibration. So I don't know if you have any insight on AWAS changing out, or if anyone wants to help with that comment.
Yeah, we don't, Lisa, we don't have any AWAS system at all, so I don't have anything.
Melissa, at Buffalo, we do have an AWAS system. The maintenance of it, we haven't really had too many issues throughout the year. We did just have to relocate our AWAS. We did some expansion at the airport, and with the new rules, the new FAA guidelines that were changed in 2017, once we built some new hangars, our AWAS was actually too close to the hangars and it was not reporting correctly. So we had to move it to the other side of the runway. We worked with MnDOT on that. Unfortunately, it was a fairly long process that it had to take us. But yeah, we had it on our CIP and moved it. But as those yearly maintenance fees that he's talking about, I have not run into any of those with our AWAS system.
We are just moving our AWAS this next year, and there is an area where, being that I have more than one hat, and this is not my background in aviation, is I need to learn more about it, even at this point. So again, another point as to why it is important to reach out to people. So as we build this AWAS, I will be asking more questions and find out the details.
Okay, great. Let's kind of stay on airport topics like that. Learning about NOTAMs, the notice to airmen. I know those can be tricky when you're not a full-time airport manager or out at the airport all the time. I don't know, Chris, if you want to share some tips on what you've learned with the NOTAM process.
Sure. When I first took over as airport manager, having no aviation background at all, NOTAMs were something that you're like, oh, well, I'm a small airport. It's not that big a deal. Well, we all know that's not correct because pilots are going to be flying all the time anyways, whether you're a small or a large airport. So if there is something going on at the airport, whether it be weather or just construction, whatever, make sure that we have those NOTAMs out. If you are uncomfortable calling into flight services, I know it gets to be kind of a hassle. You call in and sometimes you're on hold for 5 minutes and then you might not know the lingo. It can be a little difficult. I would suggest the best thing I ever did was getting signed up for NOTAM Manager. And that was, I don't know, 5-6 years ago now. So I'm hoping that everybody is on that just because NOTAM Manager, once you go through the training, it's done over the phone through a conference call situation. But once you go through that, it is so slick and easy to put NOTAMs out there. Weather-related NOTAMs, you can, update them to make sure that we're getting the correct surface conditions in the winter. I think that's very important to make sure that you're constantly updating yourself with that. And then I would also suggest that the FAA has a monthly NOTAM call. I think it's the third Wednesday of the month at noon Central Time. A lot of the information that is brought up on there, you might not think is good for your airport if you're a smaller airport. But a lot of the information does definitely rely to you just on a smaller basis. And the other thing that's really nice about that is is you're gonna get an email a couple days later summarizing that meeting. I stick those away in a file, and I've went back and looked at that many times. So I would suggest, if you have the time, usually the calls are 30 minutes. Sometimes they get canceled if the FAA does not have a lot to put, do on that call, but I would definitely suggest that.
Yeah, that's great. And where do you find that meeting information? Is it on the FAA website?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's out there. I got on an email chain and just got set up for it, but I could look into that and see where that is. And I see Bill Towle from St. Cloud is on, and he might have some more information on that, or maybe Andy or Pam does, but it is definitely something that we could get out to people if we need to.
I think normally once you're signed up for Nodal Manager, that email comes automatically. Because I get that reminder email every month also.
Okay, you're probably correct on that, Andy.
Perfect. So we've talked a lot about a bunch of different topics at the airport. There's a lot to learn and to think about. Andy, what are some ways that you balance that role with your other city duties? I know we've talked about it briefly, but could you share more on that?
I guess I kind of started touching on that a little bit. I've got a kind of a what I like to call a set schedule. Obviously with my duties and taking care of all the other city facilities, it gets broke up, but I start my day at the airport. I mean, I come in early. I come in while everybody else is still in bed. So I can get through that set stuff out at the airport, get the runway checked for FOD, get the lights checked. I like to check them lights while it's still dark out, make sure my reels are working, the rotating beacon, and then go about my other stuff, come back, to check the fuel system once it's daylight out. And then, as needed, like I said, I'll make a trip or two out to the airport a day, just to check on things, make sure, there's nobody has any issues with problems or with aircraft. And that's kind of how I manage it. If I'm gone for a day or something, I've got somebody from another department that'll back me up. Like last week I was gone and we got some snow, so I had one of our electricians run the plow for me.
Sure. And what do you do when you're not on site and like someone's at the airport that has a question? Is your phone number out there, or how is that?
Yeah. My phone number, obviously my office phone number is online. It's out there. My office phone rings on my cell phone at the same time it's ringing in my office. So I'm always available.
Yeah, that's great. How about you, Chris? Do you have people at the airport, or are you managing from afar?
I am lucky enough to have the best office in the city of Buffalo. I am officed out at the airport. We have a very nice arrival departure building that was put up, I think it was put up a year or two before I got here. So I think it was maybe 2006 that it was put up. So we do have a nice building here that has just one office in it. So I office out of the airport. But with my marketing duties, a majority of that I can just do in front of my computer. So I like the fact that I'm able to be at the airport for when business customers fly in, or just general aviation pilots fly in. I can, get out of my office and talk to people and welcome them to the city. Works really good with marketing, being able to talk to people. Some people will sit and talk to you for 30 minutes and others, they're just busy and they want to be on their way. But it also helps with being able to show them where the keys for the courtesy car are, even though we have all that information online. A lot of people just don't check that kind of stuff. So I think it's if possible, I love it. And I think it's just a great welcoming thing for pilots to come to our airport.
Yeah, great. And I know, Pam, you said your office is maybe like 5 miles from the airport. So do you have people that go out to the airport daily, or how does that work for you?
Well, I have one of my coworkers who actually happens to be the highway maintenance supervisor. And so it only made sense because he goes past it every day on his way to and from work. So he kind of checks in, and he does the sumping for me usually. And then, so if there's any little fix-its or anything that needs to be done, then I can ask him, because they probably don't want me fixing it. But I also have an FBO out there, and I may say that once we put the fuel system in and then hired an FBO to be out there, it really did attract more activity out there. So another purpose, but it's difficult and it's sometimes challenging, but as long as there's a lot of good communication and good relationships with those I work with, it works pretty good.
Great, yeah. We had another comment come in, so I'm going to pause here for that. What are some of the top comments and reoccurring conversations you have with tenants?
So I came up with, I did see that comment on the screen. You know, I think the biggest comment I get or conversation with tenants is, when is this project going to be done? Or when is, you know, they're always looking for updates, and which is fair. You know, we had a project scheduled for last year, some taxi lane improvements between some hangars, and the contractor didn't get here. But, you know, it's just like, I thought this was going to get done. Well, you know, it will. But yeah, that, I think that's the biggest conversation piece for me with them is when are projects going to get taken care of?
I would echo some of those. Oh, go ahead, Pam. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to start out with what you said. I can echo pretty much the same thing. But then that goes back to me where I said a master plan. Yep. You know, there's a lot of work involved in it. But once I had all of my committee members out there there's a few of them that are on, you know, so our tenants, once I had them involved and I really pushed to have them actively involved and picked the ones that would be actively involved, a lot of those comments, concerns, what have you, kind of went away. They understand the process more now, and they know that I'm not just sitting here watching a computer. So, yep.
What I was going to say on that, Melissa, is that since I am officed out at the airport, people are stopping by my office quite a bit. Sometimes it's, you know, only when they have a complaint, but it is sometimes they just want to come in and say hi and offer compliments on something. I'm lucky enough that my streets department does all the plowing at the airport. We like to think we do a really good job at the Buffalo airport. So I do get a lot of people commenting on that, you know, which is good and positive, but they will say, hey, why is this, you know, pile of snow so close to my hangar? What happens in the spring when it's ready to melt? Usually what we'll go in and just kind of offload that in trucks to get those piles done once city staff has some time. But it's always good to be in as much contact with the people as possible. I do have an email distribution list out there with all my tenants and even just any general people that have general information about the airport or want it. And I'm constantly sending them emails with things that are going on at the airport to keep people updated.
Yeah, great. I want to shift gears a little bit and kind of open it up to the three of you. What's one topic about the airport that you're just glad you finally just asked either MnDOT or the FAA or someone questions about that you may have been struggling with, because there may be other airport managers struggling with the same thing? So what's something that maybe you were glad you asked questions about?
I guess I could say that it's NOTAMs. When I was handed a office file box full of papers labeled, I don't have a clue what a NOTAM is. And you know, obviously it's something that we have to do to keep people safe, to keep our pilots safe, to keep, I mean, it's very important. So once I asked those questions, one thing led to another, and it's obviously a liability. So that's probably my number one. The other one was contacting the FAA and MnDOT. The first person that reached out to me was Dan Millenacker with the FAA, who is my program manager. And I just asked him questions, and I just was real with them. And I said, I don't know anything about this. Tell me what I'm supposed to be doing, you know, or who do I contact? So honestly, I think that that's probably my two biggest things that really helped settle some concerns of mine to feel a little more comfortable with managing it.
Melissa, I would actually flip that question around, I guess. And it's going to go back to my AWAS thing that I was briefly mentioned before. It's a question I wish I would have asked or understood a little bit more. Even though those expansion of private hangars was on our master plan was done in 2010 when we lengthened the runway. And at the time, the hangars and the AWAS was not a situation because, as I mentioned earlier, the FAA changed their guidelines regarding the AWAS and how close it can be to buildings and so forth in 2017. And when we allowed our hangars to be built where they were, we did not go back and check enough of those FAA guidelines to see that they had changed. We missed it on the, because it had been on the master plan, we thought it was there and we missed that. And that led to the headaches of then, kind of being behind the 8 ball and going through everything to buy new land on the east side of the runway, which takes time anytime you're buying land. And then just to move it over there and get all the FCC licenses updated, re-updated and everything. We were actually without wind speed for almost 2 years at the airport. And I will, put that back to the fact that I was not educated enough on making sure that I was up to speed with all the FAA guidelines. So I guess I would say is knowledge is always power.
Sure, absolutely. Well, kind of along that same line, like, is anyone willing to share one of their biggest challenges at the airport or something they're dealing with now because maybe someone else is going through the same thing? I don't know, Andy, if you have a challenge you'd be willing to share.
Well, I'll go back to the previous one first, and then I'll come back to this. So for me, the thing I'm glad I spent a lot of time with was how does the airport lighting system work? If something's wrong with it, how do I fix it? And so I spend a lot of time on the phone or in person with John when he was with MnDOT. He's made several trips down when something wasn't working. And I didn't just sit back and John fix it. It was hands-on. And so now I feel a pretty good understanding of how the entire runway lighting system works. And if something's wrong, feel pretty confident in it. On to the next, biggest challenge at the airport. I think one thing that stood out for me was just getting enough local funding, through my yearly budget for proper upkeep and maintenance of equipment and whatnot. It's usually a fairly small budget for equipment maintenance. And so, I really got to stretch that dollar in order to make sure that the snow removal equipment makes it through another season. The mowers, last year, luckily we were able to get a new mower. So I don't have to think about mower repairs for a while, but I think that's one of the biggest challenges is just the funding for stuff that we don't use our, federal funds for.
Yeah, that's great. And I do know that kind of back to your lighting topic, that's been a hot topic for a lot of airports. A lot of systems are reaching the end of their useful life, and those have been kind of hot topics. There is a recording for a previous webinar this winter that we did with MnDOT on lighting, if anyone wants to check that out too. I just wanted to throw that in there. But other challenges, Pam, did you have something to share?
Well, it was just the lack of knowledge and education on it, because I felt like such a lonesome person that and I felt very insecure in the fact that I don't know anything about this, and I am not an electrician, and I'm not a pilot, and I don't even know the lingo. So, it was difficult to begin with, but had I known then what I know now, I would have contacted individuals, or most importantly, I would have contacted other airports or talked to I would have talked more with my consultant, because those are a network of people that everybody's just trying to do their job and do the best that they can. And networking with others, and especially other airports, even if it's a 139 and you may feel intimidated, with a larger airport, they're very good to help. And I would offer, just because I know how people feel, I would offer that if you want to contact me anytime is fine. I will send you in a direction of what I know. But I'm much more comfortable now because I know who to talk to. And that has been the challenge to overcome, along with communicating with my board and helping them understand what we're doing and what we are required to do.
Yeah, that's great. How about the opposite? What's something rewarding that's happened in your airport role that you maybe were surprised about?
I'll jump in on that, Melissa. I think some of the most rewarding things are, number one, just the relationships that you foster throughout the aviation community. I would say, the pilots on the airfield, because I'm out here, many of them come in and I actually consider them friends, just not tenants, which is very rewarding. And then also just the other pilots, or not pilots, the other airport managers, people within the aviation industry. When you come on without any aviation industry knowledge, and then you have people that step up. I'll signal out Bill Towell again. I mentioned him many times. I called him, when I first started, just to get some knowledge, and he was very welcoming. And I would suggest that if you have not been to the annual airport conference that's put on by MCOA and the state and AirTAP, I said I would definitely go down and be involved in that, because the networking that you can do at a conference like that it's just unbelievable how many people are willing to help if you are there and just ask questions.
I would have to say a lot of what Chris said, absolutely. And I guess the biggest reward for me here is learning, knowing, like I said before, knowing then what I know now. I'm glad I'm to this point. And so now I can feel more comfortable with my budget. I can feel and communicating with my board. I can feel, and I'm more confident with planning, with CIP planning. And as you know, we got so many different fund sources coming in now that it is like putting a puzzle together. So the earlier you do that, the better. And ask for help, ask for your consultant to really dig in with you, even if it's just a virtual meeting or something. But the other piece is just networking. I mean, I can't say it enough. And absolutely, Chris, I attended the MCOA conference years ago, and I didn't know if I should really be there or not. But after I've gotten to know people, you really, really learn a lot. You learn, or you meet people and you get that connection with them. And I have to say, because I am on the conference committee, that is this year's #1 goal, is to welcome new attendees, new managers, and to help them network, because we all know there's been 2 years of us doing nothing because of COVID. So that is going to be the prime point of the conference, and I would highly suggest going.
Great. Andy, is there anything you want to share with that's something rewarding?
I think for me, it's making the relationships with the tenants out at the airport, we've got the one business there, the helicopter operator, just learning new things. He's been in the business a long time and been around there. So you learn stuff from him. You learn new items from the tenants, and for me, watching that relationship grow between me and them and all the other airport managers that I've learned from. I know Pam and I have spent a few hours on the phone over the years, just talking about whatever, the challenges of running the airport, and so you appreciate them people that have been around longer than you have at it.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing those. We had another comment come in. They're curious if any of the panel members are tasked to oversee environmental compliance matters, such as stormwater inspections and fuel tank inspections, or maybe that's something your consultants cover.
I
do.
jump in. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I do the, I collect the samples of the stormwater runoff. Send that sample in now and you have to get it tested now, and then do the report to, online to the MPCA, and then I also do the fuel sampling.
I was gonna say, the fuel sampling I do myself. I do have a company come in that does an annual inspection on our fuel tank to make sure that it's properly working and everything is, in accordance with the rules and regulations. And as in regards to the stormwater inspections, I'm lucky enough to have somebody at the city that does that. But I do, when they come out, I do go around with them. Even though they're taking the samples and entering that information, I go around with them to make sure that every place that we're looking for intakes that is, clear of debris. And I want to know where everything is in case at some point that person's not around. I've got to know how to do it in case that person isn't around. So I'm making sure that I am out with them.
We do our own stormwater, or we do the sampling. I have my coworker who's the highway maintenance supervisor. He does do that. He sumps the fuel and helps out with the lighting. So for the most part, he does a lot of that on ground work.
Okay, perfect. What's one thing that you want new airport managers to know as they're getting started? If you think back to when you began this mixed bit hats that you wear.
I guess I could start out by saying that we've all been there. There's in my involvement through MCOA as well, I have learned that most people that have become airport managers are not career aviation. Some may have some aviation background, but there's a lot of us who have had a huge learning curve to, essentially do the right thing. That's what we want to do. But I cannot stress enough that we're all here for you. I mean, it takes, like they say, it takes a village. It really truly does. And you don't have to feel alone in it. You really are. I really would encourage you to reach out to others. It saves so much time.
I would echo those things that Pam said also. I like to, harken back to what I said earlier about the aviation conference that's coming up. That did so much for me. I can't tell you enough of the relationships that I build through that. But also just the fact that don't be afraid to tell somebody, if it's somebody that's inquiring, don't be afraid to tell them that you don't know the answer and that you'll get back to them on it. Because nobody wants to be BS'd. And if you don't really know what's going on, just let them know that you'll check with somebody, the experts, whatever, and figure it out. Because like I said, nobody wants to be BS'd too. So just, it's okay to not know something as long as you follow up on it later.
And don't forget about your consultant. They're always there to help. That's what their profession is. So utilize them. They're a big asset to your airport.
And then I think I would follow up and say, don't be afraid to call the FAA and MnDOT. I mean, MnDOT Aeronautics, you send your paperwork into them, it gets sifted off to the FAA, and you're only going to learn by contacting them. And I cannot stress enough on how important it is to continue to call them, to talk with them, because every single time I talk with someone with either, I learn something. And keeping it real, because even if you don't know something or you feel like you did something wrong, they're not going to just shut you down instantly. They're going to want to help you work through problems. So, and again, with your consultants, the same thing. But I guess if anything were to be shared from me, it's that.
That's great. I appreciate the questions people are putting in the chat as well. Is there any other topics that you'd like to talk about as panelists or share with the group, or a project that you have coming up this fiscal year?
I think I have anything.
All right, I am going to share the panelists' contact information again, because as we mentioned, you start building that network is so important, and these three are more than willing to help you at any time. So I'm going to put up their contact information again for anybody. So any other comments or questions from the group?
Well, this is Catherine. I just want to thank you, Melissa, for moderating, Chris and Andy and Pam for sharing your wonderful insight of being a manager at the airport. So yes, if anyone, I do encourage everyone to check out, in the chat, I put in the link to the airport's webpage. I encourage you to check it out. It is a great place for people to connect. And if you have everyone's email, so if there's no other questions.
Catherine, this is Chris again. I just
yeah,
have
go ahead.
one other thing. I would suggest, be involved with MnDOT as much as you can. If you do have a Facebook page or a Twitter account, try to get the information out. I just shared some information about the maintenance conference and a few other things that came from MnDOT. And if you get that information out on Facebook, we have a Facebook page for our airport along with the city. And there's different people that view it, but just share as much information as possible so that the aviation community does get the information one way or another. And they may, find out that it's good for them to start a Facebook or a Twitter account to make sure that they can constantly see a lot of that information.
And it's always helpful too, Chris, to come in on that part. It's always helpful too that it makes your life so much easier if you contact the FAA and MnDOT and say, hey, I've got these ideas of things I want to do, and your consultant's always going to be working with you, yes, but if you have other questions just to get more in depth as well and make that connection, call MnDOT or the FAA and say, hey, can you come on down and let's have a CIP meeting. We've done that, and that's very, very helpful, because then they can see your airport, they can see how you run it, and it makes it real once again.
Well, great. Thank you all very much for your time today. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
All right, thank
Have a
you.
good day, all.
Everyone,
Thank
have a
you.
great day.